Mr. Combs feels A, he's innocent, which is why he's not going to plead guilty. B, he's going to be truthful about this case because he wants to portray that to the people who have loved him his whole life. And I think he also feels an obligation to people in general. Maybe it's black people, maybe it's white people, maybe it's anybody who's ever felt aggrieved and targeted by the government. He feels an obligation to those people to say, you know what, maybe I can break the model.
And we have more breaking news. Opening statements are underway in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. Prosecutors claim Combs ran a criminal enterprise with his trusted inner circle and committed crime after crime for 20 years. Now the defense is responding, accusing the government of trying to turn choices among consenting adults into a racketeering case.
In the world of entertainment, few figures have risen to the heights achieved by Sean Diddy Combs. For decades, he transformed himself from music intern to billion-dollar mogul, building an empire spanning music, fashion, liquor, and media. But today, that empire faces unprecedented threat as federal authorities pursue charges that could permanently dismantle both his freedom and legacy. The situation has become so dire that associates privately wonder about his psychological state behind bars, with some even questioning whether he might follow the tragic path of another notorious figure. Do you think it's possible he might take his life? One former associate recently speculated, "It takes a certain individual to prepare himself to do a lot of years in jail. From the lifestyle that he had, I'm not saying he can't, I just don't see him able to do time behind bars. Maybe in a camp-type situation, that's a possibility. But based on the lifestyle and what he's accomplished, if he had to go behind those bars for a lot of years, I think he may commit, he'd do an Epstein." This comparison to Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier who died by suicide while awaiting trial, underscores the extraordinary gravity facing the music mogul.
Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, testified today. You remember that CNN last year published a hotel surveillance video from 2016 showing Combs attacking Ventura. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. If convicted, Sean Combs could spend the rest of his life in prison.
After decades of whispered allegations, federal authorities have constructed what they believe is an airtight case involving racketeering, trafficking, and exploitation, allegations that Combs vehemently denies. The judicial proceedings have accelerated at breakneck pace. Just last week, Combs officially rejected the government's plea offer, standing before the judge in oversized beige detention garments. When asked directly if he declined the prosecution's proposal, he responded with steely resolve. "Yes, I do, Your Honor." While specific terms weren't publicly disclosed, prosecutors indicated that accepting the offer would have resulted in substantially reduced incarceration compared to potential post-conviction sentencing. This rejection reveals a calculated gamble, Combs betting his future on 12 strangers in a jury box rather than accepting guaranteed punishment. His attorney explained the reasoning. Mr. Combs feels A, he's innocent, which is why he's not going to plead guilty. B, he's going to be truthful about this case because he wants to portray that to the people who have loved him his whole life.
At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes. As his lawyers argue, the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way.
Now, as far as jury selection goes, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to seat a jury in that amount of time.
But beyond personal vindication, the attorney suggested a broader motivation. I think he also feels an obligation to people in general. Maybe it's black people, maybe it's white people, maybe it's anybody who's ever felt aggrieved and targeted by the government. He feels an obligation to those people to say, you know what, maybe I can break the model. Maybe I can show the world that a black man can win in federal court. And I think he probably is the only person I know of who might be able to actually accomplish that. This defiance comes despite prosecutors' confidence in their evidence. Court filings describe elaborate, sometimes days-long parties, where victims were allegedly coerced through drugs, threats, and manipulation. Government attorneys claim possession of extensive video evidence alongside accusations paralleling details from over 70 civil lawsuits filed against Combs spanning 3 decades. The prosecution's case received additional reinforcement from an unexpected source.
We're also expecting to hear from an escort who is seen as a witness in this case as well. We heard last week from the defense they're planning on attacking Ventura as well, saying that she was mutual in the domestic violence in this case, saying that she was violent toward Combs.
Another detention facility inmate. Sources close to the investigation reveal that a cellmate who shared quarters with Combs has agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for potential sentence reduction. This cooperation allegedly includes detailed notes from conversations overheard through ventilation systems, documenting what prosecutors characterize as incriminating statements about potential convictions. Defense attorneys immediately moved to block this testimony, labeling it an imaginative bid for leniency. But Judge Michelle Forrester declined blanket exclusion, ruling that jurors should evaluate credibility themselves. This development adds another challenging dimension as Combs' legal team prepares their strategy. Meanwhile, detention conditions present a stark contrast to Combs' previous lifestyle. Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn offers none of the luxuries he's accustomed to. Reports describe 3 inmates sharing single beds, minimal plumbing, inadequate ventilation, and meals costing approximately 70 pesos daily, approximately $1.20 distributed across 3 servings. One former inmate described conditions as psychological torture with zero privacy, indefinite confinement, perpetual waiting amidst squalor. This harsh reality became more isolating at a recent court appearance when Combs noticeably searched the gallery for family members who had previously attended hearings.
The final phase of jury selection in Sean Diddy Combs' federal criminal trial is getting underway. 12 jurors and 6 alternates. They are expected to be seated this morning, and then opening statements begin. We could see also the prosecution's key witness.
Court observers noted the absence of his sons, mother, and sister, raising questions about shifting family dynamics as the case progresses. Complicating matters further, prosecutors allege Combs violated detention rules by using other inmates' phone cards for unauthorized communications. While this behavior might seem minor compared to the formal charges, it potentially reinforces prosecution arguments about his tendency to circumvent established boundaries. The broader entertainment industry watches with trepidation as the case unfolds. Executives quietly review contractual clauses while marketing teams develop contingency campaigns. Behind closed doors, crisis management specialists work overtime, developing various response scenarios. The cautious corporate approach contrasts sharply with immediate condemnation seen in other controversies, suggesting unwritten industry guidelines about which scandals warrant public outcry versus strategic silence.
This morning, that's what we're hoping to see happen any time now. In less than 30 minutes ago, Kate, it was a flurry of activity behind us at this courthouse as we saw people make their way inside of the courtroom. One of Diddy's accusers actually in the front of that line waiting to get inside.
Financial consequences continue mounting throughout Combs' business empire. Analysts tracking his holdings note accelerated divestiture attempts, including a Beverly Hills property reportedly sold at significant discount shortly after the cooperating inmates' proffer session. Bank regulators flagged suspicious activity reports, questioning whether proceeds might be repositioned in offshore accounts. Defense representatives maintain the sale was pre-planned, but prosecutors may characterize it as anticipatory asset flight. Jury selection presents additional challenges given extensive media coverage. Many potential jurors arrive with preconceived notions about both Combs and the allegations. Defense attorneys worry about confusion between this case and other high-profile situations, noting strongly held opinions that there's celebrity tapes. They've kind of conflated Epstein and Maxwell and all these things into Diddy. Amid these legal maneuvers, disturbing testimony details continue emerging from civil complaints. One plaintiff alleges Combs once threatened her with a knife, stating he would give her a Glasgow smile, slashing someone's cheeks before associates intervened, saying they would prefer if she looked normal.
There is the video, the surveillance video from 2016 in a hotel showing the vicious attack by Sean Combs on Cassandra Ventura. And of course, there's other evidence alluded to in the indictment. We expect to see some of these bottles of baby oil and lubricant from the so-called freak off.
The same filing claims threats that she could be shipped off and sold to anyone in the world and never seen again by parents or loved ones. Combs' defense team vigorously disputes these allegations, stating their client was nowhere near Orinda, California on the day she claimed she was assaulted, and that there's no evidence Mr. Combs was ever even in the same room as the alleged victim. They maintain she is completely unbelievable and no sane person who views the evidence will credit her story. As the judicial proceedings advance, metaphorical tremors continue throughout entertainment. Digital forensics teams examine metadata from seized electronic devices. Accounting specialists trace financial transfers between corporate entities. Witness preparation sessions include mock cross-examinations to strengthen testimony against anticipated defense challenges. Meanwhile, the presiding judge has expressed particular concern about the nature of the alleged criminal conduct, stating during bail proceedings, "My concern is, this is a crime that happens behind closed doors." This judicial assessment suggests heightened sensitivity to the credibility challenges inherent in cases involving private conduct without third-party witnesses. Beyond the immediate courtroom,
another expectation that we have today, we're hoping to hear from some of the government's witnesses. They said they're hoping to present 3 witnesses this week, and that includes Cassie Ventura, like you mentioned, longtime former girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs. She's seen as one of the central witnesses to the prosecution's case.
Broader cultural implications loom. Industry observers acknowledge this trial represents a potential watershed moment for accountability and entertainment. Previous allegations against powerful figures often disappeared behind non-disclosure agreements and private settlements. The federal prosecution moves these accusations from civil disputes into potential criminal convictions with imprisonment consequences. Some industry veterans view Combs' situation through historical lens. One controversial commentator claimed, "Everyone knew he was the devil. He's been the devil for 30 years. He's been covered and protected by not only Clive Davis, but Lucian Grange. He was selected to be the demon that he is, to keep the culture in line so the industry could continue to keep it for all its precious jewels." While this assessment represents extreme perspective, it highlights the polarized interpretations surrounding Combs' career trajectory and alleged conduct. Many former associates maintain belief in his innocence despite mounting evidence.
And so we're going to have a lot of information coming at these jurors fast and furiously. We will see Sean Diddy Combs in court today to decide what the fate will be. But opening statements, Sarah, this is the moment you're going to hear from the prosecution to lay out their case. What will they allege? What do they want the jurors to know, to hang on to, and what will be an 8 to 10 week trial?
Outside the courthouse, one supporter proclaimed, "I'm supporting Puff because he's innocent, and I'm wholeheartedly believing his innocence. I knew he's innocent, 100%. This unwavering loyalty contrasts sharply with growing skepticism elsewhere. Social media platforms overflow with speculation about potential testimony and evidence. Hashtag campaigns both defending and condemning Combs trend regularly, creating parallel narratives about the same judicial proceedings. Additional complications emerge from bizarre coded language allegedly used within Combs' organization. One interview subject claimed, "Panda is a secret code for a certain thing. What it is you basically have a certain nerve in your rectum, and if you touch that nerve, you can turn a person into an animal. You can turn a person into whatever you want them to be if you just hold them down." While such statements represent unverified claims, prosecutors likely examine all potential evidence of systematic exploitation. Court filings suggest building a case that Combs operated an organized criminal enterprise rather than committing isolated improprieties.
We expect to see firearms and ammunition that were seized during search warrants at Sean Combs' homes. There should be drugs also alluded to in the indictment and medical records of the victims showing that there was force used.
When you see these RICO cases and you see here like 8 weeks of testimony in this, you tend to say, oh, this must be a complicated case.
A distinction carrying significant legal ramifications under racketeering statutes. Legal experts note this case presents unique challenges for both prosecution and defense. The government must connect substantial evidence into coherent narrative, demonstrating pattern rather than isolated incidents. Conversely, defense attorneys must address multiple accusers without appearing dismissive while simultaneously highlighting inconsistencies in individual testimonies. Regardless of ultimate verdict, this case represents potential inflection point for entertainment industry accountability. Previous accusations against powerful figures often disappeared behind legal settlements and non-disclosure agreements. Federal prosecution moves these allegations from private disputes into public criminal proceedings with significant consequences. Combs' legal team continues emphasizing his maintained innocence and willingness to face trial rather than accept plea bargain. His attorney stated he believes he's innocent, and what's more, he believes that he needs to stand up, not just for himself, for his family, and for everybody who's been targeted by the federal government. This strategy represents substantial gamble considering potential sentencing exposure. Conviction on multiple trafficking and racketeering counts could result in decades of imprisonment.
Today, in a New York federal courtroom, Sean Diddy Combs told the judge he was, quote, a little nervous. The rap mogul's criminal trial began this morning. He is sex trafficking, racketeering, and more. The two sides are now in the process of selecting a jury of 12, plus all.
A devastating outcome for someone accustomed to extraordinary wealth and unlimited freedom. As jury selection proceeds and trial date approaches, the entertainment world watches with combination of apprehension and morbid fascination. This case transcends typical celebrity legal troubles, representing potential judgment on decades of alleged misconduct and power exploitation. The coming months will determine whether Sean Diddy Combs emerges vindicated or faces consequences that permanently alter his legacy. Either outcome will reverberate throughout entertainment industry, influencing how powerful figures interact with those under their influence and how society views long-standing allegations against celebrated personalities. What remains indisputable: this represents unprecedented fall from grace for someone who once defined music industry success. From Bad Boy Records founder to federal defendant, Combs' trajectory illuminates both extraordinary opportunity and potential corruption within entertainment ecosystem. His continued proclamations of innocence stand in stark contrast to mounting evidence and testimony, creating narrative tension that only 12 jurors can ultimately resolve. But what do you think? Is the prosecution overreaching, or has justice finally caught up with decades of alleged misconduct? Will this case transform entertainment industry accountability or represent isolated prosecution? Share your thoughts in the comments, and remember, regardless of personal opinions, everyone deserves proper legal process before judgment.